the Gregorian calendar you think you're following is a multiple calendar.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's number patterns in the Book of Mormon. I actually discovered that the Nephite number system is preferentially using the sacred numbers, the Hebrew sacred numbers, and the Mesoamerican sacred numbers. They really put a big stock in these sacred numbers and what they meant. And the Hebrews did too.
I'm spending money like I just got paid. $100 bills, tell them keep the change. Come on.
Mormon's birth year actually was on a Jubilee year. And I'll show this when I do the character.
Pop a bottle, about to make it rain. Let me give you something now to celebrate. Come on.
There's actually a Jubilee calendar running in the Book of Mormon too. I show that.
And if you're wondering why I move the way I do, I just feel so good.
So I know Mormon's birth year. I can calculate it exactly. So I looked it up that year. There was actually a lunar eclipse on the vernal equinox that year. So I actually think he was probably born on that day. Which is one reason why all these guys would have followed him that were not even Christian at all.
The following is an episode of Ward Radio and does not represent the thoughts or the opinions of KHTS, its owners, or any of its affiliates, nor does it represent the official opinion of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. With that said, sit back, relax, and enjoy the program. So good. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Ward Radio. I'm your host, Cardinellis. Today I'm joined in the studio by Ed Thomas, as well as Jerry Grover, who just wrote the really cool book we've been talking about, Calendars and Chronology of the Book of Mormon. Now, in our recent radio segment, okay, in the second half of our last hour of our radio segment, you mentioned that anti-Mormons will come at the Book of Mormon saying, hey, the calendars don't add up. You know, Lehi and Nephi said they left Jerusalem 600 years before Christ, but it looks like it was 500 something. Samuel the Lamanite says, oh, the destruction of the empire will happen 4 years from now. It really happens 300 and something. And you surmised that they had to have been on a lunar calendar of 354 days instead of a solar calendar of 365.25 days. Okay. And when you apply the lunar calendar to these prophecies, that all of a sudden all of the math adds up. And you mentioned those two specific prophecies and so on and so forth. Are there any other phenomena in the Book of Mormon that critics of the book will criticize that can be explained by this lunar calendar as well? Are there any other prophecies people have thought were debunked because the solar math didn't add up, but the lunar math before, as the Book of Mormon says, they changed their reckoning of time? Like, is there anything else that we didn't get in that last segment that has to do with the Nephites, the Lehites, and the Lamanites being on a lunar calendar instead of a solar?
I don't know that it goes to the debunking, meaning I think I've kind of
explained, not debunked.
Number one, a lot of the arguments against the Book of Mormon are so unsophisticated they haven't even asked certain questions.
Okay,
that maybe they could have if they thought hard enough.
Right. Actually, I've noticed that as well. I've thought, man, with my knowledge of church history, like if I were coming at the Mormon Church, like I wouldn't be doing these like old, tired, like Solomon Spaulding manuscript things.
Yeah,
I'd be like going after XYZ thing on Brigham Young or whatever. But anyway,
yeah, because see me, I'm not X or believing, but it's like, oh, that's something in the Book of Mormon seems to not make sense, right? So I go out, I do my research kind of based on my own questions.
Right. When anti-Mormons get past addition and subtraction, they start calling it mental gymnastics.
Yeah.
You're a savage, Ed. You're a savage. Anyway, keep going, Jay.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So there's another interesting thing that comes out of, it's kind of the characters document, but it applies to the year counts in the Book of Mormon. I actually discovered that the Nephite number system is preferentially using the sacred numbers, the Hebrew sacred numbers, and the Mesoamerican sacred numbers. 5, 7, 10 for the Hebrew, and then 9, which is the number of death in Mesoamerica, 13, 19, and 20. They all deal with lunations of the moon. 19 is the Metonic cycle, which is when the lunar and the solar calendars coincide every 19 years. So this is known in the old world too. So it's interesting because I thought, the number system's that way. I'm seeing that in the characters document. I go, I wonder if I can find this in the Book of Mormon. Now, I don't have the underlying glyphs to tell, because the way they did it, they would add up these numbers. So they would have like 53 would be 40, which is a multiple of 20 plus 13 makes 53. That's why I figured it out. I was like, why the frick are they doing that? It's like when I figured out, they're using, at least it has a multiple or additive of sacred number. Well, if you take in 4th Nephi, it's kind of weird, right? Because it's like he's doing these year counts. The 51st year, then he says the 59th or something. It's like, why is he including these? Now the anti-Mormons have basically said, hey, why is he if the plates are at such a premium of space, why is he like identifying years, not only there but other places where nothing's happening? He just says the 23rd year, the 24th year, 25th year passed. Nothing happened, so why is he even bothering? But if you actually take in the Maya, in their codexes, in their divinatory codexes, they were big on intervals. And their intervals, when they would list all their year counts and everything, so they would have intervals that matched their sacred numbers. And the kings would want to be born. They would fudge it, right? So the king could be born on a sacred number, right? So again,
I was born on the 4th of July.
Exactly. So they figured that was happening. So because they really put a big stock in these sacred numbers and what they meant. And the Hebrews did too. I mean, if you look at the temples, like the 10 cubits, the 10 curtains, 10, they had their 5, and the 5, is 7, obviously, the 5 Pentateuch, and then the 7 is the Sabbath. And so I actually laid that out, 4th Nephi, and those intervals. And there are intervals of all the sacred numbers in those year counts.
Interesting.
And then I did it for the rest of the Book of Mormon, and you see it there too. Except the small plates. The small plates, you only have the Hebrew ones, really, until the very end. So I can actually show a number pattern. And the original chapters feature the same thing, the number of chapters in a book. Not the chapters we have now. I'm talking the original text chapters. Because it's different. They've done different chapters. That's not what was on, the 1830 edition. It has different chapters. So anyway, so that's kind of interesting. Then I take a look at Ether, because that's another question I've always had at Ether. It's like, why the heck is he just giving us, this king lives so long, right?
Yeah.
And why is he not saying it for every king? And if you take all of those, they all have the same feature. They're all either additive or multiples of sacred numbers.
So go into more detail. What's an example?
Well, you can actually see 9, for example, which is kind of the number of deaths. So you have 9 moons, Coriantumr died.
Okay.
9 years, Nephi had disappeared, then considered dead or lost. You have the disciples that are told they're going to die after 72 years, when they're 72. Weird, right?
Oh,
but that's a multiple of 9.
Yeah.
And you also have the number 24, which is also an interesting number in the Book of Mormon, because it's the 24 plates. It basically is prescribing founding or destruction. So you have the 24 plates, which represents the destruction of the Jaredites, right? And why do they care about there's 24? They don't tell you how many plates are in the in the brass plates or something. It's like something, why do they say that? Because it means something. And then also the 72 is also a multiple of 24.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you have brother of Jared, 22 friends and their families, 24.
Oh, interesting.
You have Orihah, the first king of the Jaredites, 24 sons, if you count them all. So that's the number thing. And at the last battle, right, they named 23 battle groups, and then they have one where that were all killed. And then they don't mention a battle group, but it says these people fled to the south, right? So there was probably an additional battle group, 24. And then the last day, right, there's Mormon, Moroni, there's 24, right? He says there are 24, before they were all finally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's number patterns in the Book of Mormon. It's interesting because
you think that's from the ancient Hebrew or the ancient Mayan? Which one?
I think 24 is probably their own in a way, because I don't necessarily see that in Mesoamerica. So I'm just saying that's a number that they may have had their own unique meaning, because there's 12 12 times 2 is 24.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
so there's reasons for why I would see that is. It's interesting because one of the famous ex-Mormon guys is podcasting. He actually wrote an article on the number 7 when he was an LDS apologist, and actually cited him in my book. So
Really?
he actually recognized that there was a number 7 featured in the Book of Mormon. Something. So this isn't,
Right.
and what I'm saying is there is a whole underlying pattern that we maybe not be seeing. I mean, this was really a divinatory codex for Mormon. He was writing it after the fashion of the Mesoamerican codexes. And in fact, like in the characters document, because there's like the number 9 is right there.
What's a divinatory codex? For those that don't know exactly what that specialty term means.
Okay, it's not exactly like the Mesoamerican, like we find, but they would have a codex, and then they would have all of these numbers and dates and things, and then they would predict. They would give names to the children based on. They would look at their kind of astrology, if you want to call it that, or
whether they're going to be a Taurus or a Scorpio.
Yeah, and they would
and so
predict
forth.
what the kid's life was going to be like, or can they, if you're going to be healed, you're looking in this codex, and we don't really know all that because unfortunately they mostly got burned.
Yeah,
we have, but we know their codexes, like the Dresden Codex has the Venus cycles in it. Meaning they have a lot of numbers and astronomical stuff in these what we call divinatory codexes because they're trying to predict things, right?
Okay.
They use just like.
It's
just like
using-
astrologers do now, but they were actually way more sophisticated than any of the astrologers there are now.
Oh, you don't get your astrology from the 3rd page of the newspaper? Okay, because that's where I get mine. And I'll tell you, Lady Janet McGrayskull is really good at telling me whether my day is going to be good or bad. Same with the fortune cookies. So,
Well,
anyway.
no, I get pretty much all my information off podcasts.
Yeah, that's a very good place to start. That's a very good place to start. So
Only academic grade podcasts.
Hey, so on these numbers, just to make it clear for me, is that a hard fact that these numbers happened in history, or the authors kind of tried to squeeze facts into this numerology?
Well, and see, that's the interesting thing is they are some hard meaning they had their sacred numbers
Right.
because of the lunation. I mean, they represented certain things and also in their gods and stuff like that, right? So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying Mormon did that, but it's pretty clear Mormon is like when he's talking about like the third Nephi destruction, he's pretty clear he's trying to fit in everything that Zenos prophesied. The smoke, the thunder,
Which is a
lightning.
ton of stuff.
Yeah. What I'm saying is he's not making it up, but he's obviously giving a description, making sure that he's showing. In fact, that's one thing I actually premise in this book. I go through the epistles, the chronology of the epistles, because they're not really tied in very well, right? We don't know when. Yeah. And so, but one thing is like, well, he has why did Moroni put in, where it talks about the, all the people, the horrific things happening because Mormon said he's not going to talk about that, right? He wasn't going to expound it. But it does mention famine there, which was one of the things in the prophecy, the Samuel Lamech prophecy, that really doesn't talked about by Mormon prior to that point. So I think maybe one of the reasons that was inserted was to actually show that prophecy was completed.
Right.
Okay, so I'm looking at I'm looking just at the table of contents of your book, and it's blowing my mind. You literally have chapter 2, calendars, sub-calendars, and pertinent time points and periods in the Book of Mormon. And first one, Lehi's departure calendar. Second one, 1,000-year calendars. Jubilee festival year count.
Yeah, that's another one I haven't talked about. It's a Jubilee calendar. You want to talk about that one?
Yeah, and relation to one of the 100-year. Yeah, so how does this? You explained that a lunar calendar with 354 days could explain why there was the shortness in date on Lehi's prophecy if we're thinking in the Gregorian calendar context of modern America. And that would also explain why maybe in 380 some odd years Samuel's prophecy came true when in reality it was supposed to have been 400 years. It seems like all of these prophecies come true at kind of a shorter interval than expected, but that's because we're using a Gregorian solar calendar. They could have been using a lunar calendar. Yet you talk about a Jubilee calendar and a 1,000-year calendar here. What's that, man?
Okay, well, let me tell you that the Gregorian calendar you think you're following is a multiple calendar.
Oh, really? Oh, because it's got the quarter day,
No,
right?
No.
Oh, okay.
There's 3 separate calendars there.
Really?
There's a solar calendar, right?
Okay.
There's what I call a fossilized lunar calendar. That's the months. Okay.
Okay.
We still follow a little bit of the lunar, like Easter. Okay.
Right.
Easter's not dependent on the day of the solar calendar, right? It's
Okay, yeah.
It's the first after a full moon, right? So it's, and that's why I call it a fossilized lunar calendar. It's still kind of there. We don't really follow it. It just got frozen, and then we use those months and shove them into the solar calendar.
Yeah.
The weeks is a separate calendar completely. It does not correlate with the solar calendar at all, meaning it runs, right?
Oh,
do you change it?
That's
do you give 2 Sundays if it doesn't match right? No.
Right.
Yeah, we don't realize it, but we're actually doing multiple calendars. We think of them as one because we're just, okay, here's my calendar, here's my phone, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, no, it's that one is a religious calendar that runs separate.
Whether it's January 1st or not, it's a Wednesday. And in 1 week, whether it's January, February, March, or April,
Right.
I will meet you here at this spot at this time. And regardless of what the month says, in a week, you got to pay me. Yeah, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And see, like in Mesoamerica, like take the Olmec Jaredites, for example. They don't have a year count like the rest of the Book of Mormon, right?
Yeah.
And it's because they were following, and you also have somebody living way too long, like Coriantor is like 145 or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's like they were using the 270-day calendar. And if you use that, the numbers all, meaning the ages work perfect, meaning,
Yeah.
so they even have their own calendar, right?
Interesting.
So you have multiple calendars, which is total Mesoamerican.
The only calendar I reject is the one during the French Revolution. That one just seemed absolutely bonkers and super confusing. But I'm down with the solar calendar. It would make the watches a lot cooler.
Well, that's the same reason they have a do in the Book of Mormon, which bothers me because I know God would never speak French.
Oh, I do. Oh, that's funny. That's hilarious. That is hilarious. Okay, so keep going.
Yeah.
So we practice already a tripartite calendar ourselves. That's Gregorian.
We don't think about it, right?
Okay,
These cultures they were just running these calendars, and that's the way things were. There's also, the Hebrews had a Jubilee calendar, which is every 49 years. So they'd have a Sabbath year, 7 years, and 7 times 7 is 49. And then they would have an extra year. They would do certain things. They would free all the captives. They would put the land in fallow. They wouldn't farm.
Right.
And these things. So there's actually a Jubilee calendar running in the Book of Mormon too. I show that.
Wow.
Somebody else had identified that the King Benjamin speech has Jubilee themes in it. The character's document actually showed 2 Jubilee glyphs, right? And one was the Gadianton siege, which if you look at it, they were doing all that. They were praising God. They let free captives. They kind of forgave them.
Okay, yeah.
And that calendar actually, I show there's like 1,000-year calendar running. But the base of the Jubilee calendar, interestingly enough, and addresses one other issue in the Book of Mormon, is that it starts when Lehi came out of Jerusalem for his prophetic calling.
Yeah.
Because the problem is like in the 3rd Nephi preface, it says the first year of Zedekiah, and it says Lehi came out. No, it's not departure. It came out. But I'm sure that's referring to the initial when he, and that was a Jubilee, or probably they weren't really celebrating them at that point in time in Israel, but they would go to their land of inheritance. That was part of the Jubilee, as you would go to your land of inheritance. And so he goes out, and sees a fire, pillar of fire in the rock, which incidentally, the land of Manassas has a very small volcanic field there. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. So that's explained there.
Wait, hold on a second. You think the pillar of fire that Lehi saw in the first 2 chapters of the Book of Mormon was actually a volcanic eruption that exists in what would have been Lehi's tribal land?
Yeah. Not really a major eruption, just a small event or something like that. Right. Because it didn't burn him up.
Wow. Okay.
But so I'm saying these theophanies are related to like Sinai. They propose pillar of fire by night, pillar of smoke by day, thunder. God spoke from a cloud. So not me. There's other
Okay.
scientists that said, Sinai looks like a volcano, and there is one in Arabia that fits the bill perfectly. And so
That's another radio program we got to do, man.
Yeah,
That's
right.
crazy. Wow. Okay.
yeah, so anyway, so there's this Jubilee calendar that's running, also underlying, and Mormon's birth year actually was on a Jubilee year, and I'll show this when I do the characters. Is that glyph form actually means Jubilee in the Egyptian, so of his name, which we know was translated by Joseph.
Is that on this PowerPoint presentation
Yep.
that you emailed me?
Uh-huh.
So where's this Jubilee glyph form? What slide is it?
Okay.
For any of you guys that are listening on the radio, you got to check us out at wardradio.com.
I put it last because it's
where you can see a YouTube version.
Okay, start at 41.
Okay, of what we're doing right now. There's actually a PowerPoint presentation we're going to be pulling up. You're going to have to describe it for our audio listeners.
It's kind of an S form, kind of curly Q S is what it looks like. And what we have is, how much do you want to get into it? I don't know.
Dive right in, bro.
Okay, because
in.
this is probably more one of my characters. I wasn't going to dive in every character, but
Well, just explain this one, and then we'll save the rest for the characters document.
Okay, so this glyph did not come from the characters document. There is actually a document that it's called the Frederick G. Williams characters document. On the verso side, there's a list. It identifies 4 characters, Reformed Egyptian characters, then gives a translation: Book of Mormon and Interpreters of Languages. Oliver Cowdery. There's also a little scrap of paper that Oliver Cowdery in his writing has the same thing. So presumably, maybe Frederick G. Williams is copying it off Oliver Cowdery. So it was one, and Joseph Smith said he actually translated some individual characters initially, which that's kind of funny. Just a little bit of a tangent, but I didn't take seminary, right? So I didn't give the church a chance to lie to me, right?
You mean which is a common accusation?
Yeah, people
against
like my kid's dad.
seminary,
The church lied to me. I'm like, well, I didn't even give him a chance. So
Okay, savage.
but the reality is that like these pictures, they all got all butthurt or whatever you want to call it, about
Okay, yeah.
maybe I don't know if that's a bad
No, that's
word.
fine.
Okay.
This is Los Angeles.
Yeah. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, and I grew up in Spanish Fork where we didn't use the word manure ever. It was some different term. So
Okay, that's fine.
but basically, it shows Joseph Smith actually like looking at the plates and translating off of them. It's like that actually happened. That was the first part, right? He wasn't using the hat initially or anything. So when people say, "Oh, that's a lie," it's like, no, that was actually an accurate depiction of one point of translation, right? Where he was actually did some. And so I don't know. It's interesting. Kind of
So anyway, go back to we only got like another 2 minutes here.
Okay.
Go back to explaining this glyph.
So it's a curly Q kind of looking glyph, and I kind of show in the Egyptian.
Is it this CP glyph that I see on the screen where it's like a curly Q C that forms the top of a common P?
And then the roller skater.
Is that it?
On 41? Are you on 41?
Yeah, I'm on 41.
So yeah, look at that. Yeah, the kind of a little S shape, sideways S shape.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So in the Egyptian, I kind of show it's the V12 is the Gardner designation, but in hieratic you can see on the right side there.
Okay, yeah.
It is the same form, and it actually in Egyptian means bind. It also can mean constitutes the simplest form of the last or the end, to be wise. It also has to do with in Egyptian words dealing with records or ritual book.
Yeah.
So it's actually matching Mormon, just what he's doing pretty well, right? In Mesoamerica, it also, you see this lazy S motif in Mesoamerica as well. And it means, it has to do with water, as you know, the waters of Mormon. So there's other correlations there. The blood scroll, it's also considered a blood scroll. But it's kind of interesting that it has these correlations. It also correlates to wild beasts as well. But it's also a period ending or vernal equinox glyph. So I know Mormon's birth year. I can calculate it exactly. So I looked it up that year. There was actually a lunar eclipse on the vernal equinox that year. So I actually think he was probably born on that day. Which is one reason why all these guys would have followed him that were not even Christian at all. he had an astronomical sign.
He's
power
the man.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting to see the actual Mesoamerican correlation to it, and so.
Wow. Okay.
And Moroni has a flip glyph that also means an equinox, and of course, that's when he appeared to Joseph Smith.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, these are for Carden and his weird, fascination with astronomical stuff. This is kind of like this is his total bailiwick.
My total bailiwick. I absolutely love that word, bailiwick. Okay, so you have now walked us through the solar and the lunar calendars, the tripartite calendar that is the Gregorian, and then basically shown evidence that there was a Jubilee calendar in the Book of Mormon that simultaneously operated with both Mayan and Hebrew undertones, focused around their very specific and unique numbers of 1, 5, 7, 12, 24, and the 9 being symbolic of death, so on and so forth. And with that, you've been able to even calculate when Moroni when Mormon would have been born, who is the famous general who ended up, leading all of the different armies towards the end and finally translated or compiled, better said, the golden plates that Joseph Smith would later translate and would later become the Book of Mormon. This, I feel like I've drank from a fire hose. And all of this, you say, is in this book, and I've been burning through this, and I have never been more excited to read a book since Don Bradley's Lost 116 Pages than I am this book. The title of the book is very simple. It's just Calendars and Chronology of the Book of Mormon by Jerry D. Grover Jr., P.E. PG. Before we go, where can people find you? If they want to find you, if they want to reach out, if they want to talk really fast, how can people find you?
If you go to my website, it's www.bmslr.org. And in the click down menu on the right at the bottom, it says contact. It'll go to my email. So it doesn't give my email, but it goes directly to my email.
Okay, there it is, bmslr.org. If you guys want to reach out to Jerry Grover, he's ready to rumble. He's available, and
I always respond. So.
Okay, awesome, great. We won't test that theory, but anyway, this has been beyond real. It's been beyond awesome, and it's been real awesome. For this and more, guys, please check us out at wardradio.com.
I just feel so good. Oh, I just feel so good.
Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. Before you go, please make sure that you like the video, share it with your friends, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please let this be the video in which we earn your subscription, and that you press the alert button so you're alerted to all of our fun live streams and standalone videos and community posts. Also, if you'd like to help us out, please consider joining the channel. Members get all kinds of cool perks and benefits. They get early access to a lot of our videos and special emoticons and emojis during our live streams and preferential treatment there. It's a lot of fun. Speaking of a lot of fun, we have a super cool Discord. If you'd like to join our Discord, check us out on wardradio.com. There's a link to the Discord there. Also, you can sign up there for our newsletter. Our newsletter is a lot of fun, and you can put your email address in there. And if you'd like to contribute to the program, please consider looking us up on Venmo or on the Cash App. We're on both of those platforms. Also, if you just want to keep watching more content right about here and probably right about here are going to be some more videos. Please check those out. And as always, for this and more, please make sure that you look us up and check us out at wardradio.com.